So, George, welcome back.
Yeah, I think last time we talked about my divorce, and
Yeah.
then after my divorce, uh, I went through like a similar divorce with my business. I was in business with three of my brothers, and we split up. So it was two of my brothers went their separate way in their own business, and me and my older brother started our business. And it didn't last that long because he wanted to be in business with his son and kind of semi-retire. And I wanted to go and keep working and went into business with my son. And plus I kind of do excavation.
Yeah.
I screen loam and we build houses. And to stay busy through the Obama years, I did a bunch of different things. And now that Mr. Trump is in power, the economy has gotten pretty busy. So by doing multiple things, and being just a one-man, so to speak, band, I do all the work myself. Seldom do I bring in other help. Sometimes I do, but not very often. The three different things that I do, I could do probably two of them full time and then give up the third one, but I've been trying to keep all three of them going because you don't never know when one's going to end and another one will keep you busy. So when they're all busy at the same time, it's pretty hectic. But now that it's near the end of the summer, middle to the end of the summer, and the weather's not been good for screen and loam, that part of it's slowed up. And right now we're concentrating on finishing up a house that we started building this past winter, and actually in January. And that should be this next month should keep me pretty busy. Aside from the fact I do excavation too, and I got some of those jobs coming up. But I usually work between 6 and 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And but I enjoy what I'm doing. I just turned 68, and a lot of people say, "Well, don't you think you're going to retire?" I said, "No, I don't really. Especially as long as I feel healthy enough to work, I'm going to work." For a bunch of reasons. I went to see my chiropractor, and he straightened out the small ailments I had. So I'm relatively healthy, other than being probably overweight. But other than that, my health enables me to do pretty much anything I want, and so I'm pretty lucky at my age. I evidently inherited pretty decent genes from my parents. But in my family history, the ones there's longevity if you don't smoke cigarettes. So I gave up smoking cigarettes about 6 or 8 years ago, but I never was really a heavy smoker. And all the Polilios that didn't smoke lived in their late 80s, 90s. My father lived to 92 and a half, and the hundreds. I had an Uncle George that lived to 104, and my grandmother lived to 103, my mother's side. My grandfather lived to in his 70s, but he was a smoker. One of my uncles lived to 79, and he was a heavy smoker, which is unusual to live that long being a heavy smoker. He smoked 4 to 5 packs a day. So, I mean, it is what they say is true. Smoking does shorten your life, and so I quit. I'm not ever going to go back to it. And my father said that someone who drank heavy and smoked heavy, when they reach 60, their body would fall apart and they'd die. And I've seen it in a few of my friends recently. One was 62, he died, and just recently one was 60. I don't think he was the one that just died was a heavy smoker so much. He did like to drink, but it's bad for your health. Your body's nothing but a filter, and that's bad for you. Heavy drinking and heavy smoking is bad for you.
So, do you want to talk about your friend that died at all? Like, what was?
He was a great guy. Both my friends that recently died, This last one that just recently died, Preston, had a great heart. He was like a Santa Claus type of personality. He gives the shirt off his back. Very friendly, very outgoing. I'm gonna miss him. Preston was a great guy. And my other friend that died a couple of years ago, he was also, I liked him a lot. He was different. He was a businessman, smart, fun to be around. His name was Carl Cressetti. And he drank and smoked too much. It's a shame because Carl was a great person. But as they say, nicotine is as addicting as heroin. And people that I see that smoke heavy, they can't quit. Even if they come down with a health problem, they can't quit. The nicotine is just too strong. It's unfortunate. And there's also that I've noticed in my life that they say that some people have an addicting personality, so to speak. So what happens is someone does quit smoking, they'll go on to another habit, either drink a lot of coffee or something else will have to take up that place of whatever they overdid, say the smoking. I know someone, Bill Brady, who I used to work with landscaping, he had to give up drinking. He was a blackout drinker, he said. He couldn't stop with one beer. He'd have to drink until he blacked out. So he gave that up, but he would smoke a lot and drink coffee all day long. So it seemed like if you're that extreme, and he was also an extrovert. I mean, he was a very intense person. Whatever he did to the extreme. Great guy to be around. I learned a lot working with him. It was hard work. We used to go all over New England and dig trees and replant them at a big condominium complex that we were doing. Went to Yonkers, New York for azaleas. The whole backyard of this woman's house was all azaleas. She was in her son was in his 60s, so only can imagine how old she was. And we brought tractor trailers there, and she filled up 2 tractor trailers full of azaleas. They were all multicolored, beautiful. Around Mother's Day, her backyard was all different colors. And she dug all the plants by herself. Her son worked in a nursery. She was a unique person. It was pretty interesting. And we went to Rhode Island to dig cedar trees. Down near the sod farms, there was a big nursery. And what the nurseries do, he used to go down there and practically get these big spreading arborvitaes, junipers, all different kinds of shrubs that grew huge, but they were taken care of by the nursery, so they were perfect. But they got to be too big. So what they would do, either they sell them really cheap to my friend who would go down there and dig them by hand. I'd go with them, or they'd have to plow them under, because what their main concern, what the easiest thing for them to sell is the smaller shrubs to the public. So we used to go down there. We go to New Hampshire for pine trees, blue spruce. We did go to Rhode Island once for blue spruce, and he sent me down there to load 2 tractor trailers because he'd dig them all by hand, and he said the balls weren't right, so he was too upset. So he stayed up here in Stoughton and dug all the holes, and I went down there and loaded 40 pine trees that were about 15 to 20 feet high on these 2 tractor trailers, and we'd have to go up 95, and they only could go 45 miles an hour because they were afraid of windburn. We got them back in that same day. We loaded them, planted them that afternoon, and they all survived. So it was pretty remarkable how it all came about. I got to learn how to stack trees on a trailer because I did a lot of them with them. That was one of the things I've done. I've done a lot of different things. I always used to go and work where people would say, "Oh, that's hard work." I'd go there and I'd do it. Any place. I enjoyed that. We'd dig shrubs all day long by hand, and it was pretty intense. But it was rewarding. I mean, because it was pretty neat working around shrubs and stuff.
And so now is Bill still alive?
No, he was when I was in my 20s. He was in his 40s. So I haven't heard from my. He had problems with his heart. His whole problem was he's thin as a rail. I mean, but he was a wicked heavy smoker and drank coffee all day long. He couldn't touch alcohol. He was. I don't know if you ever went to AA. He just stopped drinking, but. He was like a candle would be burnt at both ends. He was that kind of a guy. You know, he was intense. One of the most intense people I've ever met. But he'd make waterfalls. In the wintertime, he wanted me to go with him. I never did. I wish I would have. He would carve ice carvings. We'd take a block of ice and be in a refrigerated van and do an ice sculpture. And he was talented like you can't believe. So I used to build waterfalls with him, move the rocks and build a man-made waterfall. So he did all these different crazy scenes, and he'd have once in a while he'd have me. We worked together in a condominium complex in a apartment building, and then once in a while he'd have a huge job and he'd want me to go with him, and I would work with him, run a machine or dig a shrub or. We went all over the place. He'd go into the woods and spade around these trees, and then go back there 2 or 3 years later and dig the tree out. Because what happens is when you spade around them by hand, the ball gets tighter and more condensed, so more likely it will live when you transplanted it. So I learned a lot about transplanting shrubs with him. Pretty interesting. It's a lot of hard work, but I enjoyed it.
So you said your friend Preston died. Was that just recently, or?
Yes, that was just a week or so ago.
And so how
I found out, that he died. I was kind of by my friend, and I was kind of shocked because I didn't think he was that sick. But then I went and talked to my son. He said he was at his work and he couldn't walk very far when he was out of breath, so evidently something serious was going on and he wouldn't go to the doctor. So, Preston, that was Preston. So, no, I'm all right, but he evidently wasn't. And I guess they found him in his apartment, and it's pretty sad. He's young, 60 years old. Well, I think it's young in today's age, but it's unfortunate, he was overweight, which I'm overweight, but he was overweight and he smoked and he drank a lot. Not a good combination. And he had health problems. I guess he was in the hospital not too long ago, and something was going on. But he didn't say anything to me. I sat down with him. He just come back from Barbados and he was all excited about that a few weeks ago. And he told me all about it. I think it was like 2 or 3 months ago. He told me all about it, and he wanted me to go to Barbados with him. And he's a great guy. Like I said, if Preston had something and you liked it, he'd give it to you. He was that type of a person. So hopefully, and I think that he's up there laughing. He's always in a happy mood, always laughing and smiling, and great guy. I'll miss him a lot. I think you don't realize when people are around how much you will miss them when they're not here. So.